My name is Vina.
Go.
I'm Jocelyn.
Hi, I'm Emery.
And I'm
Actually,
Dylan.
go.
This is our play on the coal
Go, go, go.
Dionysus in classical Greece. And you may be asking yourself, what's so interesting about this coal?
Here to tell you how the Code of Dionysus transformed its ritual observances from a crazed force to a domestic practice when it came to the veneration of Dionysus in classical Greece.
Wait, before we answer the question, we have to know our context first.
In the beginning, and I mean the late 3rd millennium BCE, the Minoan society rose on the island of Crete. From 2000 to 1450 BCE, they built a series of castles and composed a written script called Linear A to keep commercial records. It became the center of Mediterranean trade. A series of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions hit the island of Crete. Minoan society faced outside invasion because of Minoan wall. The Minoan society fell. Meanwhile, in 2200 BCE, the Mycenaean society rose in southern Greece. In 1600 BCE, the Mycenaeans began to trade with the Minoans and eventually expanded their influence outside the Greek peninsula. This led to the Trojan War, a conflict between the Mycenaeans and the city of Troy in Anatolia. This created chaos in the Mediterranean and made it impossible to maintain stable government. As an effect, we see the rise of Greek city-states of the Pole, who are independently run.
Okay, so now that I know when this all goes down, let's answer the question already.
The cult's origins. They drank wine and partied, and went into the woods and had wild drunken rituals. They were wild and domestic and frantic and went through phases of rejection from Greek states and overcame resistance and gained followers throughout the time period.
It is even shown in this frantic state in their art. Depictions that are seen are usually unnatural-like and broken, almost always in a state of near collapse. Even images of Dionysus were wild. He was seen as old and mature, such as in the relief of Dionysus' procession with statue. Theater was another form of devotion to Dionysus and was often followed by drunk parades. These plays were used to show their devotion to Dionysus and included some of the greatest poets, performers, and singers. Ceremonies for Dionysus were often theater because the performances were seen as sacred and acts of worship.
What's the cause of this change, you may ask?
Dionysus freed men through drunkenness and inspiration. He became a god of holy inspiration because he filled men with his spirit to write and act gloriously. This view of him became way more important than the early ideas of him. Many Greek city-states at first rejected the cult of Dionysus because of his foreign origins and his wild drunken rituals. When the cult first arrived in Rome, worshippers held their celebrations in secret.
As the Dionysus cult began to evolve, so did their art. Unlike earlier depictions, Dionysus began to embody more traditional Greek and Roman desires. He was sculpted in a younger and more beautiful filled way. Art became more tamed, and theater began to blossom once again. Though they no longer had wild festivities, after theater they would soon catch the attention of other societies and begin to spread. It would also become a way to tell Dionysus' story. The life of the tragic god was expressed in heartfelt plays. They displayed his suffering, which consisted of what led his catastrophic death and his resurrection.
Hold on, how do you guys know all this information?
Well, we had to do some research.
Hi, I'm Edith Hamilton, an American educator who wrote a book on Greek mythology called Mythology in 1942.
Something tells me I shouldn't trust you.
Why not?
Well, I doubt your historical context. You're clearly a secondary source since you didn't actually live in the classical period. So there is a chance that your work isn't even historically accurate. On top of that, you compiled information from other sources in order to write your book in the first place. So what if there might have been mistranslation from the accounts in the classical Greek literature? Greek mythology itself has many variations, so who are you to claim that your book is factual because it might as well not be?
I'm editor John M. Wickersham, and I published Dionysus in the 2000s.
Why should we trust you? The cult of Dionysus was known for being a mysterious cult. Not only that, but most of your information was based on myths, and myths can be easily fabricated. Your sources may also prove to be unreliable, as there is no way to make sure they are historically accurate.
Hey, I'm Alana Kuntz. I'm a student of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, graduating with a history degree and certificate in ancient Mediterranean studies. I published the art and artifacts associated with the cult of Dionysus in 2013.
Though you seem reliable, how can we ensure your sources for the article aren't outdated?
Fragments and older sources and artifacts are often used. However, as more studies are drawn with more advanced answers, Kuntz uses both older sources and newer articles. This helps ensure that readers are getting both first and second-hand evidence.
The cult of Dionysus still impacts today's society through its advancements in theater.